Welcome to New Game Plus, a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Noel.
And this is Retro Recap 13.
13.
You know what else is a 13 that I love?
What?
Red.
Red, yeah.
Okay,
Red.
yeah.
FF, yeah.
Yeah, also FF. Final Fantasy 13. And also Retro Recap 13. So every, 20 episodes or so.
Or 25, yeah.
Ish.
Well, and
Real
I
big-ish.
I think we kept it right at the 20 mark this time. We do a retrospective on the last 20 or so games where we have historically, the three of us have talked about those episodes and our memories of those games. However, the last few episodes, we haven't.
We decided that wasn't as good. We have evolved, and it's not as good as our community doing it, because it would just be us saying the same things that we've already said, which is not as interesting. So we have three of our dear community members that are going to be leading the Retro Recap this week.
Yeah, so you're going to get a little take of not only what you've missed, if you've missed some, hopefully you haven't.
You better not.
But a great way to catch up and to see if other people's opinions match ours. Did we get it wrong? Did we get it right?
We did not get it
Find
wrong.
out
Honestly,
today.
I love listening to these. I love hearing if they're like, the guys are so wrong on this.
They're so fun.
And they do say that.
They do say that.
These three
80% of the time.
will roast us.
Yep.
And so, without further ado, we're going to turn it over to three of our beloved, esteemed community members. We are a community-driven podcast. If you haven't, join us on Discord and on any of our social medias. You can find all of those links in the show notes. We'd love to interact with you on a regular basis. We've got a great, thriving community there. But for this special episode, we're going to give it over to Garlyle, Shawna, and Brojem.
Welcome to New Game Plus Plus, a retro gaming podcast where three fans spend 21 weeks listening to one podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then they talk about it and then we talk about it. I'm not Dustin, I'm Garlyle.
And I'm not Kenny, I'm Shawna.
I'm not Nolan, I am Brojem.
And this is Retro Recap 13. Isn't that a lucky number? This is a special feature where we look back on 20 episodes worth of game. For longtime fans, this is a fun walk down memory lane. For newcomers, maybe this will help you find the episode you want to start on. And for those who aren't familiar with our voices as opposed to our regular hosts, why don't we go around and introduce ourselves?
Ladies first.
Thank you. Hello, I am Shawna, and I'm usually hanging out in our Discord. I've been a part of our community for probably close to 3 or 4 years now. And I am not a retro gamer, but I'm just a normal, cozy gamer, I guess.
My name's Brojem. Or Chris, if you prefer. Same. I'm in the Discord. I'm kind of into Legos. I've streamed that before, but I am a retro gamer. I do own enough of a retro collection, I can say that, but I also have spent way too much time on Elden Ring and PS5, which are both new developments in my life. But other than that, that is what I'm all about. That and work and tons of mandatory overtime.
I don't think it would be an episode of New Game Plus if we don't talk about Elden Ring and how much time it has, absorbed.
I don't even like Souls games that I've been playing that one a lot.
I think everyone has. It's just, I started playing that on the Castlevania 64 week, and I think I'll talk about it when we get there, but Castlevania 64 definitely didn't get very much play, because it's like, really, am I going to play this and not Elden Ring?
And to finish us off, I'm Garlyle. I've been a director with New Game Plus for a very long time now. You might have heard from me at least on one episode at this point. So, as mentioned, the point of this isn't to just talk about Elden Ring. They did swear it off on the main show, and so we're going to swear it off from here on. But we are going to talk about 21 different games this time, of which I did actually bring some statistics this time. So, of 19 games, Discounting a couple of director episodes that did not actually receive formal votes, 12 different games received NGP status this time, while only 7 of them did not. Usually it's a lot closer to a half and half situation.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's that high.
Yeah, me too. But we had some really good bangers this time around too, though.
Yeah, we'll get into it when we get there, but there was a streak. We set a new record for NGP games in a row during this set of games, with either 6 or 8, depending on whether you're counting those director episodes, which was a pretty good time to be playing games.
Yeah, I'm honestly, maybe I should look up my notes again. I feel like I listened to a different set of episodes. But hey, let's get there.
Either way.
This time, the system that we're seeing the most representation from is going to be the PC. And despite this being a retrocast, most of our games this time were actually from 2003, with a total of 5 different games coming from that year, which isn't really that far ago. Last I checked, that's only 17 years ago.
Yay, I'm old.
One thing, though, that is very different from the last retro recap is that there was a lot more disagreement on whether games should receive NGP or not. Last time we did a retro recap, there was only 3 games that weren't unanimous votes. This time, half of the games, 10 of them, were not unanimous votes. So, as you can see, the games we'll be talking about this recap are not all black and white.
Oh, you did it. Go ahead.
Like in a retro game of the week. Our first episode this time was the Patreon pool submitted Ikaruga, which began with the words, "It's an arcade shoot 'em up, I guess." And featured the word puzzle 31 times. I counted. Dustin accused Nolan at the end of it of saying it more than he did. Nolan said it like 3 times total. Dustin said it over a dozen. I'm just setting the record straight on that.
Puzzle. Yes, the Ikaruga, the puzzle shooter.
Yeah,
that's
the
what I have
puzzle
in my
shooter.
notes. I don't even have a system.
It was the DDR puzzle shooter, correct?
DDR.
I mean,
Yeah.
a terrible way to think about it.
This was one of the ones that you had been submitting to Patreon pools, right, Garlyle?
Not me, but I know there's a couple people who'd been pushing for it. This is kind of a community favorite, and this game is also a huge deal in the shmup community. Like, this is one of those games that is consistently placed in, like, top 5 lists of the genre. And I kind of understood why, finally, playing through it this week. I kind of understood it, but also I completely understand why the guys did not give it New Game Plus.
No, it didn't get New Game Plus. I really tried with this one. I did. It's already, shmups are hard for me. I feel like it's just memorize the levels until you can do it by rote, and then you can finally do it. I just am not into that kind of gameplay. I like playing through and overcoming. And honestly, I think it's overshadowed by the other game you brought us, but no spoilers.
Well, wouldn't you agree, though, that these shmups where you have to figure out how the levels work and then go back and repeat that is kind of like a puzzle?
Yeah, it's not incorrect of what the guys thought. And, like, I think the reason that it didn't end up getting New Game Plus from Dustin is, like, when it comes to shmups, you can approach things very, very casually and reflexively, and some shmups are really, really good at that. You don't have to, like, learn tricky patterns and stuff in order to survive, but they can be kind of simplistic to match. The resulting gameplay when you master Ikaruga is amazing, but you have to actually be willing to master it, more so than anything else I've encountered in the genre.
And for those of you who are like first-time listeners, I understand. So the gimmick with Ikaruga is you can switch the polarity of your ship from black to white, hence the pun that Garlyle graced us with. And when you are in one color, you absorb that color and do bonus damage against the opposite. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so you can switch your polarity, and that's the whole gimmick of this. So there's things you literally cannot dodge. There'll be a sea of bullets, and unless you switch polarity at the proper times and in different ways like that, you'll be destroyed.
Definitely a cool concept.
It is an amazing concept, and honestly, I did try. I bought it, 2 different versions of it. Actually, I had to buy it for the Switch because the Steam version wouldn't allow me to play it because my frame rates wouldn't get high enough for it to accept them. I don't know why. So I really tried.
The next game we played was Jackie Chan's Stuntmaster, which is a 2000 game, and we played it for the PlayStation.
Yeah, PlayStation, it really lives in that era of graphical style that I have a lot of nostalgia for. But it's a beat 'em up. Gosh, it's shmups and bups in this time around. Forget shmup, then a beat 'em up, then a shoot 'em up, and I was over it. But let's settle this. Are we a Jackie Chan podcast here? We all love Jackie Chan, right?
I haven't seen a whole lot of Jackie Chan in my life, but I have, liked what I've seen.
I know the Jackie Chan and the types of movies that he is in, and they are enjoyable to people.
Oh, Shawna.
Oh.
What?
No,
And I
love...
At least this game made an effort to actually capture some of the energy of the movies, too.
I think that this game was really fun as far as what it was trying to do, because it, for that time, right, in 2000, I remember Jackie Chan. He was super popular in that time frame, and I think that the game was fun because it brought you along. It let you play in that movie that, a Jackie Chan movie would be, and that's what made this game kind of fun.
I would say, yeah, it nailed tone, certainly. But again, it suffers this, like the 1, 2, 3 fall. Hit, fall, wait. Hit, fall, wait. And it's just, no. I'm over it.
Yeah, that was just something beat-em-ups were struggling with at this time, where they're, still escaping the limitations of, pseudo 3D, but actually 2D, but they haven't yet reached the modern, God of War or Devil May Cry style, really understanding what makes action work in 3D.
Yeah. I will say from this era, I was really into Jedi Power Battles, which is a Star Wars beat 'em up, like Episode 2. I hope I'm not lying. I think it was PS1. But that one, I think, did it a lot better, and you could unlock combos and things like that. And for some reason, I really was reminded of that when I was thinking of Jackie Chan. So go play that one instead. Switching to a assault against our senses. Yet another shmup coming up. Next game was Aerial Assault for the Mega Drive, right? We always get Mega Drive and Master System mixed up.
I think it was Master System.
It's the Master System. That's the 8-bit one. So
God, I can never remember.
I know, right? One of the whatever the 8-bit Sega system was. Ironically, I had played this game a lot as a kid, but I played the Game Gear version. They did a lot of that. Same thing with the Sonic Chaos Week we did. We played that for the Master System, but I played a ton of it on Game Gear. And they are significantly different, so I don't consider myself having played it. But it's another shmup, and after Ikaruga, I don't think this one had much of a chance.
Yeah, shmups and bops, just like you said. Promise, we're going to escape that. We're not a shmup and bops podcast.
So actually, I did have a question came to mind while I was refreshing myself on the games that we played. And I almost wonder if, it's spoiler alert, this didn't get New Game Plus, but I wonder if it didn't get New Game Plus because we had basically a shmup right before it. And we were just shmup and bupped out. And maybe the game didn't rate as well just because of that.
No, this is just kind of one of those games that the genre, even if it's old and 8-bit, you can tell the genre had already moved on and advanced beyond what this game was when it came out. It would have been okay but unremarkable for its time, I think. And now you look at it today and it's just why? And there's just a lot of games that fall into that era, which are important to do if you're getting into retro games, to know what games were actually like back then so you can appreciate the standouts, but this was not one of those standouts.
I think that it suffered from a lot of just unexplainable missteps, the whole, you die and then you get all your upgrades reset. and then so you're fighting that uphill battle, which is annoying. Long, very, very long stages. And then they had like weapons that sucked. Like if you grabbed a weapon, it literally would screw your playthrough. Like the one where it shot the same direction that you're moving. I mean,
oh god,
that's garbage. Hot.
I've never seen another shmup do that, and I understand why.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, you're right. That was not good.
Next up, we come back to the pool selected games with Clen's producer pool entry, Rayman 2: The Great Escape, from the N64 and PlayStation and Dreamcast and PC and probably something else too. I don't even remember. A 3D platformer that kind of aimed to take its own direction from a lot of the other 3D platforms of the era, by doing a lot more like just story and cutscenes and goofing around and stuff in between stages that had a personality that really captured the guy's interests.
Now, last retro recap, I had to apologize to Shawna for bagging on one of her games. Now I got to apologize to our former co-host here, Clen, because this game, it's like they said Conker and Banjo had a baby and had this game, which I love that line from the episode. But I'm a Banjo boy. Banjo-Kazooie, I think, is the pinnacle of this kind of flavor of 3D platformer. So coming into this, it just felt bland. It's like drinking water after, sucking down your favorite soda. I guess it just didn't hit right. I'm not saying it's good. It's not good, but it had a hill to climb.
Well, there was some good that came out of this one. If we remember, this game did kick off what we know as the Year of Clen as well. So this was the pinnacle episode where the Year of Clen was coined, which is exciting. And I remember this era of games. When I worked at an electronics store and I sold video games, there was a lot of games like Rayman and obviously like Conker and Banjo and like all of these really fun 3D platformers that were coming out. And I feel like they this is the era for the games like this, and there's a lot of excitement around these characters and a lot of love around them. So, definitely nostalgia bombs for like all of them for sure. I think it was just who's your favorite of all of them.
Yeah, everybody's going to have their favorites, and it's kind of hard to really latch on to some of them just because there was so many.
And there really were, especially for the N64. I wish I had played this on the N64. I did the PC version, and that frustrated me a lot just trying to get to work. So it had... I just feel like the stages felt very close and kind of bland, just kind of flavorless. Compared to I felt Banjo was more open, and even Mario 64, they kind of had those closed stages, but I enjoyed exploring those more. I think I'm too biased though to be objective about it, to be honest.
Yeah, compared to a lot of the other 3D platforms of the era, did it again. It was more of that like classic linear stage design as opposed to open and exploration type. So,
yeah, I think the biggest thing it brought us was the teensies because those guys are great.
Well, the next game that we played takes us back to the swamp, where we enjoyed Shrek Hassle at the Castle. This is a 2002 game. We played it on the Game Boy Advance, and even though it didn't get NGP, I would say it was probably the best game we've played so far.
Well, okay. So I polled some of the community on Discord before I went into this, and actually they will agree with you that this was one of the best episodes we've had. The community thinks it was one of the funniest we've had in a long time.
Yes.
The game, however, I'm pretty sure there is exactly one person in our community who likes this game, and it's probably, what's the word? Not Schadenfreude, Stockholm Syndrome. From Clen making himself speedrun it. Because Shrek's great, fight me, Dustin. This game is not, however, you're right about that.
We are a Shrek podcast.
Yeah, we are a Shrek podcast. 100% Shrek all the time. I agree with you. The game itself was garbage. I played along this week on this game, and I think I even wrote in for this episode, which had me very underwhelmed with the game as well. And however, probably hands down best episode of this group of episodes. And so if you're not a regular listener, Shrek Castle at the Castle is absolutely the episode to listen to.
Yeah, I understand. I didn't play it like you did, Shawna, but I did watch Glenn speedrun it, and that game it's hot garbage. Like, it's just so inexplicable. I did not have fun for him, and clearly he wasn't having fun. He was having fun, speed running it. So
Sure.
It's one of those games that you can't have fun. I think the most notable part about this episode was that in the beginning, Nolan claimed that Dark Souls was up for the Retro Master list.
Yeah.
He claimed it was 15 years older. It came out in 2011. He's only 4 years off, though. So
That's Jesus.
So one thing to note too, like we said, this is a really fun episode. Not necessarily a fun game to play, but one of the other things that stood out was that this was, I would say, out of all of the episodes, I think Dustin got the most animated, and I would say 10 out of 10 angry Dustin on this episode for sure.
not a Shrek fan.
No.
Well, speaking of not being a fan of something, Panzer Dragoon Saga is our next game. Now, don't jump on me. I just, for RPG's sake, whenever we pull an RPG, I kind of roll my eyes because 99% of them I can't play, or they're just kind of very generic. Panzer, I think, is not. I think it, even not playing it, not being able to play it, I want to play this game just from what they were talking about.
Yeah, this was a really cool game, and I know you stick to like obtaining legal copies of games like as much as humanly possible. And unfortunately, one of the things that makes this game very special is the fact that you can expect to pay about $1,000 a copy for it. And that's a real shame that this has not gotten a re-release, because this had one of the most creative battle systems I've seen in the era, and that's not a statement I make lightly.
Yeah, I love battle systems. Go ahead, Shawna.
Sorry. Wasn't this the game that, like, the IP was lost or something along those lines, and that's why we haven't seen a return of it?
I don't think it was the IP, but, like, the original data they built from is just gone.
Yeah.
Crazy.
The battle system is why I wanted to play this game. I am a sucker for a good battle system in an RPG. I'm the one who loves Final Fantasy 13 because that system was just so off the wall, and I embraced it.
Yeah, this game, for those of you who didn't listen to the episode or just aren't aware, it's like if Star Fox 64 was being executed as an RPG, and also on Dragonback. It's just such a cool thing, and I had a ton of fun getting to discover it, and I think the guys did too.
Man, I will say this about the game, though. It suffers from what every RPG suffers from. That's kind of why I did the segue I did. They said on the podcast, it doesn't get good until disc 2. And I hear that about too many JRPGs, where it's just like, oh, just put 50 hours into it and it'll get good. I don't got that kind of time. No, I'll go play Elden Ring. It's good from moment one. Thank you.
We're not supposed to talk about Elden Ring.
Oh, no. We don't talk about Elden. No. Sorry.
We can't have an NGP episode without a song. So now we just, for those of you playing NGP bingo at home, go ahead and mark that off.
And did you end up playing that week, Shawna? Did you play this game?
I didn't, and I wasn't sure about it, and I'm always very skeptical about the Sega Saturn games in particular. And I noticed that this group of games, we played quite a few Sega Saturn games this time around, and I have a theory about them overall doing really well on the show, and I almost wonder, is it because the games are really great, or is it because of the scarcity and like we didn't really get to enjoy them, because like growing up I didn't know anyone that had a Sega Saturn, so there was no way I was going to get my hands on any of these games back then, and they always do so well. So I'm wondering if they do well because of scarcity and we get to play them now and we're like, oh yeah, that's really great. Or were there just so few titles and they all had to be amazing titles?
I feel like we really ripped up Vector Man when we did that one. Wasn't that Sega Saturn?
Was
so
it?
they
I
did
think
not
that
like
was.
Vector Man.
I think that was just standard Genesis, though maybe it got a Saturn port.
It did definitely get a Saturn port because I played it as a kid. I actually had my grandparents had a Sega Saturn. I don't know how they did though, and it had Vector Man, and it had, or maybe it was Sega CD. I can't. Sega had so many
yes,
peripherals.
That's right.
I just don't
And the
remember.
32X, and
It's a
so
good time.
many. I can't remember the difference between a Saturn and a Sega CD. I really can't.
next up, speaking of the year of Clen, we have the game that Clen himself brought to the podcast for his director episode, the N64 platformer Bomberman Hero. One of my actually, like, weirdly favorite picks from the system.
Yeah, I think, justice for Bomberman 64 was a lot of his motivation for bringing it to the podcast. Bomberman 64 did not get NGP back in the day. It was a travesty because it's an amazing game. It's one of two decisions in the entire podcast I've actually legit upset about. The other one being Batman, Revenge of the Joker, that piece of trash that got NGP. I really, really wish I could have gotten a hold of a copy of this and play, because I have an N64 and I boot it up every time we do one, but I could not get a hold of it in time to play it, unfortunately.
But now, though,
now, I mean, I would play it. It really was fun hearing discussion. I've listened to a lot of the music, which is amazing. I know that's a star they put on it, but yeah, I think it's definitely a must play if you're looking for something to pick up.
another fun thing about this episode for those of us who like to watch the video recording episodes on YouTube is that Clen came in cosplay for this episode as well.
He cosplayed Bomberman, which is pretty sick.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you.
No cue. I will, if we're going to detract from it, it is a little bit like the game I brought, because I'm an N64 boy. I brought on my episode Jet Force Gemini. But you have to 100% Jet Force Gemini to get the true ending. Same thing here. And that is really difficult to do in this game, especially for the vehicle sections where you had to like restart just to get enough score to get a perfect run, which kind of like shoot 'em ups. I don't want to restart until I do it perfect. I'm not into that. Also, there's no fuzzy rabbit Yoshi that's in the other games that you can ride around as Bomberman. I want to see a 3D fuzzy rabbit Yoshi in one of these games. I don't know what his actual name is.
I feel like there was, but I don't. Like, it's kind of a blurry spot in my memory, so I can't confirm or deny. Clen's going to be ashamed of me saying that after I said this is one of my favorites.
Oh no, Clen, correct us.
All right, the next game we played was Alien Soldier, which was a 1995 Sega Genesis game. We seem to have been playing a lot. It seems like a lot on the Sega universe this time around. We've been talking about
Blank.
The Sega blank. Lots of Sega this time around. So yeah, this game, I really liked the art style on this one as well, and I was trying to figure out, because we have so many shmups and we learn words like bullet hell, and I was trying to figure out, is this bullet hell? But it's more of like a boss rush, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and action, side-scrolling. Like, technically there's stages, but mostly it's just a boss rush that, thanks to, like, having dashes that have invulnerability and stuff on them, feels surprisingly modern if you can get past the fact that they tried to convert, like, an entire modern game's worth of controls down into a 3-button Genesis controller.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is I sat down to play this game. It's available on the Master. Sega has a really cool system where they brought a bunch of these games into a collection. And I sat down to play this one, and that weapon swap mechanic, I realized this is the thing I have to learn. And I just never got up the gall to just put the time into it. I'm not always in the mood to Dark Souls it, just to push until I get good at it. I can't. And that's what robbed this week, because it is really cool. I mean, visually, music, the style. I mean, it's got everything. It's got teddy bears on surfboards. It's got possessed lovers. It's got floating space heads. It's an amazing collection of things. But to overcome that controls and learn it, I just couldn't bring myself to do it in a week.
One thing to remember too is that this is a treasure game, which we seem to like the treasure games.
Yeah, I think even at the worst, the guys have respected the treasure games, even if, there's cases like a Karuga where they're just like, you know what, this game is maybe a little too much.
Yeah, I grew up playing Gunstar Heroes, which is an absolutely amazing game. We've done it on the podcast already, so yeah, treasure gets my respect. The next game we played is one of my personal favorites, and that is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic.
For those who are not watching the video version of this cast, Brojem just pulled out a lightsaber from off screen.
Where are you keeping that?
Don't worry about it. I have to turn this off, otherwise you can't even. So, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. What? I own a lightsaber. What? There are people don't own lightsabers? Okay.
I don't own a lightsaber.
So, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic is one of my personal favorites. It changed my view of RPGs. It changed my view of Star Wars games. I grew up in an era of Star Wars games. There were a lot of them. You had like the Phantom Menace for PS1. I talked about Jedi Power Battles. I had Rogue Squadron for the N64, the Bounty Hunter and Jedi Starfighter games. We grew up, but this was the first time that like an original story in the Star Wars universe that didn't follow one of the movies that I exposed to. Plus, it was my first experience with Dungeons and Dragons. So it lived in a very special place in my heart, and I got to play it on my phone. I mean, amazing. This thing's been released on everything. It's on your toaster.
Yeah, this was, I'm not Brojem, I'm not pulling out a lightsaber here. I'm not actually really a Star Wars fan much at all. But even when I was a kid who was, like, more actively I don't care about it, it was a game that kind of blew my mind. Like, it was exceptional for its time, and honestly, still pretty good.
I totally agree. I remember when this game came out, and the overall sentiment of it was that it's like nothing that we've ever played before. And like you said, it's a lot of our very first experiences with Dungeons and Dragons and how that works. And I really enjoyed going back and playing this game. Again, I didn't get too far because we only had a week to play these games until we move on to the next thing. And I had so much fun going back and just re-exploring areas that we explored, long ago in a galaxy far, far away. And it's still just a great game. It still really holds up.
Yeah, it really does. BioWare, unfortunately, has gotten better at most of the mechanics. Dungeons & Dragons is a great base to build an RPG on, but it doesn't age too well, and it's especially in the what we have modern day. For those of you who don't know, they're behind Mass Effect, so this is the precursor to that. I think they do a lot better nowadays with the being like the Black Hat, being the evil, because you can go dark side, but it's a little over the top, like slaughtering women and children. Like there's no nuance in between being the good and being the bad, where they do that better in games like Mass Effect, or even when they did the MMO for this. I played that a bit, and I was a bounty hunter, and I kind of went the dark path. I was not a nice person, but those choices were a lot more interesting to make in the more modern version. So I think if they had another swing at this, which they might when they do the remake, they could make those dark side choices more interesting and rather just stereotypical evil.
I think the nuance is what makes it more fun. And I think back in 2003 when we were playing this for the first time, it might have seemed nuanced to us to start going down that dark path or going towards that light path. I really love when games like this are pulled, which are very well known, very loved games, and for us to look back at them in our modern eyes with our modern game experiences and see if these games have really stood the test of time. And it's always exciting when at the end of it you realize, like, oh yeah, it did. This is almost 19 years later, this is still a very playable game.
Absolutely. I think it is very playable and has one of the best twist endings ever. You gotta play it. I will say, if I had to choose something about it that's not great, it would probably be, well, like I said, the dark side choices. Also, that card game. Ugh, that card game's garbage. Like, Dustin was going over the moon for that card game. I think they all were. And I keep remembering Final Fantasy VIII when I got into that game, and I was following a guide, and then I got to the first person where you're supposed to win a card from them because I'm following the guide. I couldn't beat her. I spent 45 minutes trying to beat her, and I never played the game again. So I'm like, oh, screw this game. If the rest of the game's going to be like this, forget it. So I've never played Final Fantasy VIII because of that stupid card game. So immediately in this game, I'm like, that card game, no.
Brojem took his cards and went home.
No, I'm done. Like, Final Fantasy VIII did not happen because of the card game.
Speaking of taking trips down memory lane and revisiting classics from your own personal history, next up was my second director episode, where I brought on another Japan-only title in Toho 7 Perfect Cherry Blossom. Yeah, it's a shmup. I swear we're not a Shmups and Bops podcast, but precisely because we had a whole lot of shmups recently that hadn't gotten NGP, I kind of took it as a challenge of like, okay, can I find one that will actually bring the guys together to enjoy it? And I was genuinely surprised that I succeeded.
Yeah, I'll say it. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I was very skeptical when Garlyle first did his director episode. He brought this Japan-only JRPG. I'm like, oh, I'm ready for this, fanboy, but it's not actually good, but he's going to bring it to us. And honestly, Live Alive, we could just go on about that and the remake that's happening if we want to nerd out about that. Because I love that game. It made me realize I don't like JRPGs. Because that game is such a standout, I realized that most JRPGs are just kind of middling, like not a great thing compared to something like that did something unique. So I
realize Dustin's gonna come for you, saying that JRPGs aren't great.
I'm not a JRPG fan. I didn't know it until that Live Alive episode, where I kind of figured out. We're gonna talk about Live Alive instead of Tao, Perfect Cherry Blossom, but I didn't realize it. But I just think that games like that do something unique. And this game, for a shmup, I thought it did a lot of unique stuff. I enjoyed watching it. I watched a lot of Dustin streaming it. I do have a high score. And if you look on Dustin's game, it says Brojem right there. So I do have a high score. It's got a unique visual styles. It's story-driven. It's got spell cards that you get. It keeps track of ones that you successfully dodged. And am I doing this right,
yeah.
Garlyle? Yeah, I thought that was really cool. I was motivated to play it. If only I could, get it somewhere.
Yeah, I'm happy to say that compared to when we did that episode, does appear to be a company that's actually started picking up on, like, filling out some of the Toho back catalog. So maybe within a few months you might actually be able to just finally grab this on Steam, which would be wonderful.
Yeah,
but
and I know you...
Yeah, this is kind of like Live Alive and stuff, and like a number of other games. Sometimes it just takes the right entry in a genre to take something that, you'd look at and go like, this is not my thing, but that does enough to actually, like, draw in players and make it playable to break that fear.
Yeah, I think this game, what they mentioned on the podcast that really makes it stick out among shmups is the movement is so delicate. Sometimes you don't want to move. Like, literally, if you move, the bullets will track into a place where it will screw you completely. And I loved watching Dustin try to figure that out, where you want to move so bad. There's so many bullets on the screen, but no, don't do it. Just tap, just a little tap, just and that's really. I thought the subtlety to this game, you made a good choice to try to redeem the genre.
I like this game for a completely different reason, but I love it because of the story that you brought to the table with it, Garlyle. And I love this game because I love love, and this was a very near and dear title to your heart. And so hearing why this is such an important title to you made this episode really special.
Oh, thank you. It was completely an accident that it ended up being a Valentine's Day episode. They just gave me, like, hey, can you record an episode with us on this date? And I'm like, wait, that means it's coming out on Valentine's Day. Well, now I know what I have to do.
Yeah.
Well, and it is kind of heartwarming. I actually had familiarity with this game. I didn't know. I've listened to a lot of the soundtrack. I didn't know
Oh.
like Bad Apple was part of this series.
Yeah.
I didn't know. But yeah, so if you are wondering what the soundtrack's like, you've probably listened to it if you're into any kind of video game music.
All right, and the next game we played was The Curse of Monkey Island, another well-loved PC title from the good year of 1997. So I would say pinnacle point and click era for the PC game community. I know that point and click games don't always do really well on NGP, but they are near and dear to my heart. And whenever one comes on, I always get a little nervous that they're going to rip them apart. But I was very happy to see that Curse of Monkey Island did pass the test. And this is a Lucas game, which is also really great PC titles. Like Lucas Games always put out really great PC titles back in that time frame. So again, another really awesome game for us to play.
I would say I'm surprised that you're a point and click girl. I did not know that. I played this game. It's available on Steam, so I played through a lot of it. I think the tone is great. The humor, it still hits. I wanted to go back to like the first and second one to get the inside jokes too, but it suffers from what all point and clicks suffer from. I love doing the scene. Once I find the scene and I figure out the puzzles and what to do and how to interact with everything, that's great. But the in-between sections, trying to stumble my way through, or you're just randomly, you get so frustrated, you're just randomly clicking stuff. Speaking of the year of the Clen did introduce us to a spoiler-free walkthrough where you can basically click tiers of how specific of a hint you want just to kind of nudge you to it. And I would encourage people, if you're going to play it, have that ready to go. Otherwise, you're just going to get bored like I did, where I'm just like, I don't want to find the next place. Forget it.
Yeah, it's so easy in these games to just like, there's just like this 5-pixel box down in the corner of the screen that is actually an important item, and you just didn't mouse over it. But other than that, this game was like honestly really good. For me, point and clicks when I was a kid was largely actually watching my friend Cecil play them while I was over at his house, because those were just a thing him and his family were really into. So I watched him play through the entire game on Discord and just kind of relived a little bit of that week, and it was a good time.
Yeah, I think it's a great game to watch. I mean, like Nolan watched it most of the time. He said he was having it in a second screen while he was playing Path of Exile, so I don't know how much of he did. Speaking of games that I did, Dungeon Keeper 2. Oh, what a great game. What a high standard. I was so excited. I was like, this is unique. This is it's a PC kind of RTS-ish building bases. It's hard to describe because it's so unique in the genre. So I fired this thing up thinking it was gonna just rock my world, and it did. The narration was great, and then the visuals were fine if you can get it to run, but unfortunately, no one told poor Brojem that possession was optional. So he struggled with possession. He had to look up guides on how to get it to work on the PC because it's resource intensive in a weird way, and that ruined the game for me, unfortunately.
Well, I'm a little disappointed to hear that. So I never played Dungeon Keeper 2. I remember when it came out. I'm a huge fan of other Bullfrog games, and this is a Bullfrog title. To my recollection, Bullfrog is like a British developer, and they did a lot of PC games in the 90s. And one of the things that I really love about Bullfrog games, which carried over into Dungeon Keeper 2, obviously, when we played, was their cheeky, like, British humor and the great narration that they have. Like, all of their games are like that. All of their games are very detailed, and it's so fun to play them because you get very immersed. But yes, I agree. Like, playing Bullfrog games are, in this day and age, a little hit or miss. They either work really well and you can play them, or they don't, and then you're not having a good time.
Yeah, this was peak British humor is a good way to describe this game. I mean, when you've got a devil character running around whose name is Horny, we're talking about a game with a ton of subtlety here, right?
Yeah. So
Honestly, I think if I had realized that you can just skip possession completely and that there was another way to attack the enemy base, or if they just simplified that mechanic, just like in RTSs where you could just group them up and go, I would have not had such a bad taste in my mouth. But I didn't read that until I had dropped my commentary. If you go back on my commentary, I literally had to edit a spoiler at the end to say, I just realized you don't have to do possession. I just ripped this game apart for it. Because it doesn't explain that it's optional. It teaches you how to do it, and it makes it sound like that's the way you attack the enemy base. So
yeah, and with a whole lot of or rather a lack of direct unit control if you don't use possession, it can sure feel like it's an important mechanic. Which, I'm not usually an RTS boy, but for once I did find myself going, God, I wish I could just multi-select a bunch of units and tell them where to go right now.
Yeah, trying to select it from a first-person view, trying to click on each unit and getting them grouped up. Yeah, you can imagine
when they're running around at the speed of Sonic. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the fun of it, guys. In an RTS game, that's the gameplay.
Jeez.
There's one thing I love. It's RTS and point and click.
Oh no.
Cozy games. These are the early days of cozy games, right? These RTS games and the point and clicks. It's just so fun to control all the things.
Yeah, and the guys did like it. I failed to bring it up, but we are well in the thick of all these games got NGP block right now.
Yeah, if you play this game, all the concepts organizing your base and getting the new units and access and deciding where to guard things so you're not getting attacked, it's there. It's worth playing. I just will never do it again.
Finally, because we didn't have enough director episodes, this batch of episodes, we had our final one for this set of episodes, where Jay brought us Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga.
This game lives in my heart. It is, like Nolan, I was a GBA boy. I had GBA and N64 and GameCube. Those were my heyday. I would challenge you to name a game I didn't own or play. And I grew up with this one. I loved visiting it again. I pulled out my, what was that flip one? Oh my gosh. Why can't I remember? Thank you, Game Boy SP. Pulled out my Game Boy SP. I pulled out my cartridge. It still had my old 100% save on there. I was so jazzed to play this.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this one's kind of a classic and technically didn't do too much super new, considering Super Mario RPG and Paper Mario had done the whole timing battle. But this one really went out of its way to expand upon that and make it fit on a portable system. And it lives in a lot of people's hearts. And I think Jay probably made a lot of people very happy bringing this one to the podcast.
So what do you guys feel about Paper Mario? I know Paper Mario is kind of beloved, but what about Mario RPG? Are you guys a fan of that?
I have greatly enjoyed the original Mario RPG.
Yeah, I would agree. Good. Yeah.
I feel like they kind of tore it up on the episode when we did it. I am a huge fan of Mario RPG.
They did, and it was largely for the fact that it didn't really feel like a Mario RPG. It was a good RPG and a good game, but it didn't really do much with the fact that it was Mario and was kind of an original setting and story, which is something I could probably level against, some of the Paper Mario games and stuff that are still beloved, too, even though I really like those. But this one definitely feels like Mario, even if a lot of its things are unique.
Yeah, I think it is simple. I can see what people would say is kind of simplistic, but I found myself actually engaged with the combat. I felt like I was making decisions do I kill the weakest enemy or do I kill this one that I suck at dodging because he hits me every time. They have, those brothers attacks are terrible though, I will say that. I never could mash those buttons in the right timing.
And they got worse and worse as the series went on, but that's my opinion.
No, I think I'm right there with you. But yeah, it has everything you could want in a Mario game. If you're at all interested in any Mario RPG of any era, go back and play this one.
All right, and the next game we played hit every single system in its time. So that's Xbox, PlayStation 2, GameCube, PC, and we're taking a stroll back to 2003.
Yep.
I feel like we've lived in 2003. Like, this is the whole year of games that came out in 2003. We played Simpsons Hit and Run, which I would say at the time people were excited about. I think that vehicular games were always very exciting back in the day. It was, open world. I'm using air quotes here. And, you have like games similar like Crazy Taxi and the like and other. But what did you guys think of going down to Springfield and revisiting The Simpsons?
Oh man, here was a game that I definitely remembered loving as a kid. I definitely had the chance to play it back then, and I booted it up again, and I was like, okay, this is fun. This is all right. This is all right. Something about sometimes you get games like we had Knights of the Old Republic. Like, that game still has much of its magic. This game I went back to, and it was like some childish wonder was just gone going back to it this week. And I know I'm probably breaking Nolan's heart saying that, but I know the other guys kind of agreed with it. And so this was the game that brought the NGP streak to a screeching halt.
I see what you did there. I'm immediately going to prove myself a liar. I said, name a GameCube game I haven't played. I haven't played this one because I wasn't allowed to watch Simpsons. So this was forbidden by for me. I'm sure I probably played it at a friend's house, so we'll say that. But I think the main thing about this episode was them arguing about whether it's Grand Theft Auto or not. It clearly is. Dustin was wrong. I feel like we say that too much. Dustin, we love you. We love Dustin. But he was making a very failing argument that this was not at least Grand Theft Auto adjacent video game. They clearly copied it.
Yeah, I think that they did just a lot of taking from other vehicular games that were popular at the time and making it Simpsons, and then making it as obtainable by as large of an audience as they possibly could, right? So you have, The Simpsons appeals to a large swath of people, and I think in 2003, The Simpsons, I think, were still, very relevant. I think it's still like the longest running show in history or something like that, animated TV show.
Yeah.
And, I think it definitely hits different now. And I think that this is an example of a game that maybe at the time was beloved, and now we're looking at it now and it's on that chopping block of time. Whereas, the Knights of the Old Republic is still beloved. This, like you were saying, like the shine has kind of worn off a little bit on it.
One thing you can say about Simpsons is that it was very accurate to its source material. Another thing that was very accurate to its source material, so much so that it just copied it, was a WarioWare Mega Party Games $! It is. I think this game disappointed Garlyle and I both, but for completely different reasons. Garlyle definitely wanted the first Wario game that we play to be like the GBA version, which this thing just ported over, or another better version of the WarioWare games. I wanted it to be one of the Wario Land games because I loved those. But that didn't happen, and we were both very disappointed.
Yeah, I remember bringing the GBA WarioWares to, what was that, episode 300 for the Everybody Brings a Game pool. And I was all excited for it, and apparently a monkey's paw somewhere heard my wish and just started curling up because, this game works, and I'm really glad that they got to play this together. We should bring that up, that the guys actually all got together in real life right around the time that this game got randomly selected, which is a wild coincidence. And so there's actually video footage of them playing it with each other and absolutely dunking on Kenny, which I'm pretty sure is why he did not give this game NGP. However...
So mad.
Weren't they were hugged up on a love seat, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
All within touching distance.
I will say that, oh my gosh, there's so many good episodes in this run. I will say
So
in this
many.
one, episode 100 is Metroid. That's the first time they did the podcast in the same room. They literally were knees touching around a microphone, and I love that episode so much. And so I love this episode too. I can I can see where Kenny was coming from, but at the same time, the way they implemented multiplayer in this game is all this game is the port of the Game Boy Advance version of the game. But they added multiplayer in the way that you can kind of interfere with the person playing the mini game, and like you can block them with your big character, you can taunt them and things like that, and that is a ton of fun for couch co-op. You can do a similar thing in Mario Golf for GameCube, where you can taunt them while they're trying to shoot. And oh my gosh, I've played that couch co-op with people, and I died laughing because it is hilarious.
Yeah, it's honestly, I do love this game, and it works really well as multiplayer when everybody knows how to actually play the base game. When you're all familiar with the mini games, and like you all actually need to interfere with each other to make those losses occur. And unfortunately, the game itself does not do a good version of teaching the original, so it's a little bit spicy, and I know there's a lot of people still hoping we get a different WarioWare game at some point on the podcast.
I don't know. Somebody told me this was like Mario Party, and I hate Mario Party because I have no friends. So that and the N64 version literally gave me blisters as a kid. So it was compared to Mario Party, but I feel like this one I would actually love to sit and play with people. But I tried to buy it. I did. Found a copy. It's $99 at this retro game store that I went. So, nope.
Yeah, GameCube games, you either had them then or you were paying out the nose. So, I know that we said a couple episodes ago that we love Dustin. However, I've been warning him that I was going to tear him apart on this retro recap over his opinion of the death and return of Superman. It was a Patreon pool. I understand that there's at least one person out there who really loves this game. I'm okay with that.
Maxima loves this game.
Maxima?
Maxima.
Oh.
Well, all right. Thank you, Maxima, for submitting this game. This is a bad game. Eat my entire butt. I'm completely confident in this statement.
Oh my. Well,
language. Oh my goodness.
That was me being gentle with my language. Nolan was the only one who accurately recognized how utterly repetitive this game is. And he didn't even stress enough on the episode. You'll go through an entire stage fighting two enemies. Maybe have a boss fight at the end of it. Maybe, by the way. Then you'll go to the next stage. If you're lucky, it will be two different enemies in that stage. But half the stages reuse the enemies, and then half the stages also reuse the bosses. And you do that for like an entire hour. This game is so bad about it.
I think that this game didn't suffer, it benefited. They were still together when they first started playing this. So this was the tail end of that week that they spent together, and so they actually played this sitting on the love seat or whatever, and they were like passing the controller, because it's not multiplayer despite being another beat 'em up. But the fact that they were all kind of passing the controller and adventuring together, I think, really colored their opinion of the game. They just didn't have as strong a hate as the community did, because the community hated this game.
Yeah, they came out of this like, I don't understand why people would dislike the game. And it's like, well, the reason we dislike the game is we played it.
Did you play it this week, Shawna? Are you willing to defend it?
I am not willing to defend it. I did not play it, but I'm just checking right now, and this game got NGP.
It did,
they did,
and Kenny was at least lukewarm with it. Kenny was willing to be all like, it's got problems, but I enjoyed it enough. And, like, it does it doesn't do it, like, other than the repetitiveness, it doesn't do anything so terrible as to ruin the experience, but also I don't think it does anything that redeems its massive flaw in repetitiveness.
Are we still... I mean, are we okay? This was actually developed by Blizzard. Or do we have to say, like, Microsoft, Blizzard, Activision now? Is that, like, legally required? I don't know. But can we still cancel this game because of Blizzard? Or is it too late?
I'm fine doing that.
Yeah. Down with this game.
It may have been Blizzard's golden era, but that didn't mean everything they did was amazing.
All right, so the next game that we played is another GBA title, which we love. I would arguably say that this is like early Animal Crossing, but hard, and Pokemon. And from 1999, another great year, this was called Survival Kids.
This was maybe one of the most unique games we've had on the podcast in quite a while, which is funny because survival games are, like I mentioned it in my commentary in the episode, the survival tag for a genre is one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse in gaming these days. Just every game wants to do it just for the sake of doing it. But this was doing it back on Game Boy in 1999 and made the entire game about that experience and is really unique for the era and system because of it.
Yeah, if I had had this game as a kid, I know it would have been one of my favorite games.
Yeah,
So
if I had this game, I would probably still be playing it.
You know, it is. Those of you who don't know, Shawna has a YouTube channel where she does Animal Crossing for the Switch. So I can believe that about her.
Yeah, that would pretty much be all I would play. I mean, I'm expanding my horizons. I'm playing more games now, but yeah, it's like this. When I saw the first play of it, or when the title was first chosen, and it was like Survival Kids, I was like, oh, there's gonna be no way I'm interested in this. And then I watched the first play, and I was like, oh my gosh, this game! I needed this game when I was, younger. I would still be playing it. Like this, my notes basically are that this is Pokemon meets Animal Crossing, and yes.
I think the visual style did come up, and not everyone was thrilled with it, but I thought visually you have to be into it. See, I was into the Oracle games. They're some of my favorite games still, and we have played them on the podcast, but it does kind of remind me of that Link's Awakening, Oracle kind of graphical, Pokemon as well. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is awesome. I want to jump into it. Something I would not want to jump into at all is a Pickle War, which is our next game of the week. Pickle Wars was a DOS game, and I lived in the DOS era of platformers, so I'm surprised I had never played or heard of this one. I had a lot of Kenny said the same thing. We had a lot of history with these DOS platformers. I loved Jill of the Jungle, Commander Keen, Duke Nukem, not 3D, not before they ruined the series, and then like Jazz Jackrabbit. I loved those games, so I had a lot of hopes for this one, and they were very quickly dashed when I watched Kenny's first play.
Yeah, I also grew up in those era. You just listed a whole bunch of games that were like me in the 5 to 10 year old range, and I think I had the realization going back this week that I'm like, wait, a lot of those games really were not that good. But this one,
fired.
But this one in particular was bad even for then.
All I have here is bad games make for good episodes.
This is true.
100% agree. This game. So what can we say about the episode? There was pickly ASMR. There was argument over. Dustin accused pickles of having ammonia in them, which made no sense to me. I'm like, yes. Yes, he says. He says, Kenny, you're gonna leave those pickle jars open? Your whole room's gonna smell like ammonia. They don't have ammonia.
Do pickled jalapenos count as pickles? Vote now on your phone.
No, they don't. Nolan had the wrong on that one. Sorry, brother. You gotta go with the bit. You gotta have a lightsaber next to you for a whole episode. You gotta go with the bit. Okay. I would say my biggest complaint about this one, getting back to the actual game, is level design is an underappreciated art. As someone who's playing through a Souls game right now, an Elden Ring, and has played through Dark Souls, you understand the care that's put into joining these levels together and making them conscious decisions in what you put and where. This game didn't, and it's very clear that they didn't play test at all on the first level, because you can and will get soft locked on the first level. It does silly things like lock doors with ammo that is limited, and they start levels by dropping you to your death. And they didn't care about the level design in this.
Yeah, this game is kind of interesting, like, on a history perspective, in that it's one of those games that was made by somebody who went out of their way to be all like, you know what, we need to make, like, non-violent video games. We need to offer alternatives. Which, I know a lot of people will hear that and be like, wow, that sounds kind of lame. But, like, there's a lot of amazing video games out there that don't actually use violence in them. You just have to understand that you can't just take a violent style of game, copy-paste it, do a bad job at it, and then say, oh, but you're not actually killing the enemies, you're scaring them back to their home planet with salad. Like, that just doesn't work.
No.
Or cereal.
Or cereal. Hey, wait a second. Don't you bag on Chex Quest. We will fight.
Okay. How is it not the same thing?
Oh, okay. No, all right. No, we can play. Because Chex Quest was a good game. That's the thing, is it was fun to play. It was, well, I mean, it was reskinned over a great game, so that's part of it.
It at least had decent level design, and it was running on a Doom engine, which is fundamentally a fun engine.
Yeah, and they clearly designed the levels with care. They wanted it with humor, to be honest. So this game, no, they were more, I think she was trying to make a point, and when you put your preachy point above an actual game, making a good game, it's gonna flop.
Next up, not a Patreon pool, but one that I'd seen in the Patreon pool several times in the past, and then ended up just randomly drawn. We came to the Sega CD version of the original Lunar, The Silver Star, a game that I'd been told dozens of times throughout my life, hey, I need to go play at least some version of this game, and I kind of understand at least a little bit why now.
Yeah, this is another Sega peripheral game. We had a lot of these this time around, most of them beat-em-ups. I will start by saying the first play. Okay, so Dustin's first play is a must-watch, I feel like, because I was just fascinated. Number one, he has a mustache. How do we feel? I must ask you this question. How do we feel about Dustin's mustache? Because no one's rocked a mustache before, but Dustin's done the beard, but never just the mustache. Are we good with it?
I hadn't noticed.
Noticed? I mean, I don't know. I'll leave that to the community. I would say I love the visuals. The frame rates are very... Is it smooth like that because of the emulation, or did it actually run like that natively? Do you know, Garlyle?
I mean, I imagine it actually ran pretty smoothly natively. Everything it was using the CD function for, I think, was more the space for, like, the audio recordings and, like, a lot of the music. Not all the music, but a lot of the music. So it just left the rest of it to the standard Genesis processing power, which, I mean, the Sega Genesis was capable of running a hell of a lot of games pretty smoothly, so a standard JRPG wouldn't have actually been, like, a major stress on its performance.
Yeah, I that's what hit me with the graphics right above. I will give you some memorable lines from the first play. He says, right off, I need a guide. This is first, like, right out of his mouth after the first dialogue, which is so on brand for Dustin. He goes, about your friend, he goes, oh, so he's a fat boy. I'm like, that's shaming. He says, my friend will probably turn into a dragon. Spoilers. And then he goes, I have red hair. Am I Randall Thor? I thought that was some funny lines. It's a good first play if you want to watch
it. One thing memorable about this episode, too, it was only a couple weeks ago, but Kenny was not on this episode. So this, for this game to be considered New Game Plus, it had to have majority vote from both Nolan and Dustin.
And it did get it, if I recall correctly.
It did, yeah.
Yeah, considering Nolan got so into it, he finished the entire game.
That's right.
Yeah, that was this one. You're right.
He did.
I think a shout out to the controls. You have to go. Part of the reason I want you to watch the first place is you have to see what they're talking about, because they did go into this neat thing where when you're walking, it'll guide you around corners without you having to change directions. And they talked about just how that quality of life, a lot of things in this game were quality of life, just like that. And you don't realize how annoying that is in old-fashioned RPGs to have to like constantly like corner around everything and get through. But it's pretty cool to think. Not necessary, but it's nice.
Yeah, this episode was really good as far as like commentary goes and talking about the game for sure. And a lot of things in this game were called out as quality of life that we don't normally see in RPGs. So that conversation was super interesting to listen to if you weren't able to play along this week. Alrighty, so the next game that we played, going back to a beloved console, the N64, was Castlevania 64. And I'll be honest, until the week we played this game, I forgot that it existed.
I know a lot of people who would argue that they try to forget this game exists. This is a game that has a reputation that honestly is way worse than the actual game is. Not that I'm going to say the game is necessarily amazing. It has some critical flaws. But also, I think there's an enjoyable enough experience in here, which is impressive given the reputation would have you believe that this is the worst thing that ever happened.
Wow. So you would give this game NGP then?
Maybe hesitantly.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's a personal love for the game, but I do enjoy it.
Well, because it's only like 5 hours long.
I mean, so are most Castlevania games.
I would say that Garlyle's tone is very similar to the guys. They were very generous to it and thought a lot of the hate was undeserved. I tend to disagree. I have a copy of this. I have a copy of the remake they did too. This was one of those rushed releases. They released an unfinished game. They remade it later for the same system with more characters and expanded quality of life stuff. So I think they even knew that this wasn't a great thing. Here's my problem with it. If this was just called Castlevania, we call it Castlevania 64, but it's just called Castlevania. It was the first transition from 2D to 3D for the series. And imagine if this was your first exposure to Castlevania. You're an N64 boy. You pick up Castlevania. You're like, ooh, I think I've heard of Castlevania. I want to play this. That's why I hate it so much. Because let's say you picked up Metroid Prime as your first Metroid game, or Ocarina of Time as your first Zelda game. You would be like, I gotta go find the other Zelda game. I gotta go find the other Metroid games. That's how I got introduced to Metroid. Was I played Prime and then went back and played all the other games. So what if like Zelda 2 was your first Zelda game? And we can argue if Zelda 2 is a good game, but it certainly would color your version of the series. It wouldn't develop a love of it. And that same thing for Castlevania. If this is your first one with the ice physics and the respawning enemies and the camera never doing anything right, this was a transition to 3D done wrong. And I don't think it should be played. Sorry.
I can see your point. Yeah.
A game that I actually think should be played is Golden Axe, the threequel. Golden Axe 3. Golden Axe 3 was an interesting historical game because it was actually for the Sega cable, like, download service that they had. Sega did everything. They had just throw it on the wall, see if we sells. And as a subscription-only game, it's kind of rare, but it is in the Sega collection, and I, despite not having played, because this is the week I got my PS5, so I didn't play no retro games. I actually found this was an episode that made me want to go back and play it, even though it is a beat 'em up. Another beat 'em up to end our episode.
Shmups and bups. That's
Shmups
what we
and
do.
bups.
Yeah.
I was excited for this game because I thought it was Golden Axe 2 because, well, so when I was younger, I had like a cartridge that had a bunch of like different like banger like Sega games on it, and Golden Axe 2 was one of those. And so when Golden Axe was chosen, I thought that it was the one that I played. And then looking at the first play, I was a little disappointed that, you know, this wasn't the beloved game that I played when I was younger, but it seemed to be like very similar. It seemed similar enough that it was almost like the same, or at least what I can remember. So I really enjoyed that this game was pulled. I really liked Golden Axe growing up. And I also really liked Streets of Rage 2 growing up quite a bit as well. And there was a lot of contention going back and forth about this BUP being not Streets of Rage 2. And I personally would like to live in a world where Golden Axe and Streets of Rage can just live together and coexist in harmony.
You and Nolan were vibing because Nolan raged over every commentary because of that. Like, stay tuned. It's great. Poor guy. He's just like, oh my gosh, every time Streets of Rage came.
I mean, you know, I like to always bring a chill vibe to anything I do, but I will admit that I was getting a little emotional listening to everybody being all like, yeah, it's fine, but it's not Streets of Rage 2. I'm like, it doesn't have to be.
No. I wish
we do oftentimes like tend to be like, oh yeah, well, here's like the best in the genre, and here's what it's like standing up against. And I do think that's always important to recognize, but also sometimes games can do specific things well enough to live up to those, even if the whole package doesn't. And like, I do want to point out, like, this game had like such a diverse moveset that was fun to play, and enemies that were actually like meaningfully different. It has its strengths and values.
Yeah, playing Streets of Rage these days, I guess I just don't get it. I'd rather play Castlevania. Fight me.
Just not a butt boy.
I guess not. Although I do want to try this one, and I wish I had gone back and played it. But hey, look, I've been waiting a PS5 for a year. Give me a break.
With that covers all 21 episodes that have happened since the last Retro Recap. Our next game of the week, if you happen to miss the Golden Axe 3 episodes ending, is Lufia 2, Curse of the Sinistrals, a game that I'm really sad has not been released in a way that will enable Brojem to be able to play it.
Yeah, I know. We have 2 weeks to play an epic RPG that everyone loves, and nope, will not be playing along, but hey, what can I say? I've been disappointed on Patreon pools before. Read this episode. I will say that we would like to thank everybody for listening, but and we'd like to thank all of our patrons for supporting the podcast. The guys really do appreciate it, and they make sure to shout them out every time. But I will shout out a specific thank you to our producer level supporters, and they are Amarlian, Antonin, Ben, Brunkt, Carrie, Captain Protein, Dan, DH Bowser, Francesca, Gimbin, Joey, Jordan, J. Robert, Justin, Clen, Nick, Knack, Corey, Maxima, Mr. Lattes, Nahul, Sajin, Secret Duck of Evermore, Shawna, Thomas, Unbedateable, William, and Zion.
We would also like to thank our director level supporters and my co-hosts here today. We have Brojem and Garlyle, always great to hang out with you guys in Discord, and a special treat for me to hang out with you guys here on really fun episodes like our recap episodes.
Yeah, I'm really glad you could join us for this. It's been an absolute delight. For those of you who have not come and hang out with us in Discord before, you should do so. Go to the NGP website at ngppodcast.com and click on Join Us in Discord. Let's see, what else?
Well, that's the only way you're going to find me, because I don't have a life outside of Discord or my job. But I do know that both of my co-hosts do have very active things that they're doing in the podcast/YouTube community. Can you guys plug that real quick?
Oh, okay. Well, you can not only find me in Discord, I'm there every single day. Come hang out with all of us in the friend den. But I also have a YouTube series that I do under Shawna Games, where we do mostly cozy gaming and focus on Animal Crossing and Sims. And up until very recently, I expanded my horizons to being a cat cafe manager. That's going very well. Thank you, Garlyle, for helping me find that game.
Yep, and I happen to host a podcast called What Am I Podcasting For? It's a podcast where I've been playing the entire Mega Man series, game by game. It's on a little bit of a slowdown at the moment, mostly because my health hasn't been super great. I was hoping to have a Mega Man Battle Network episode ready to go at the same time as this one, but it's still a little delayed, my apologies. But I've still got a big backlog if you haven't gone and listened to it, so go ahead.
Yeah, I do appreciate both of your content because I quit Animal Crossing, so it's nice to see where it's going. And I will never play a Mega Man game, but I do love listening to your podcast and not having. I get to secure the cool music and the level design and never have to suffer through it, so it's great for me.
All right, and with that, I'd like to give one final big thanks and to Dan Willett for editing and producing the audio version of this episode. And to Dylan for editing up the video version of this podcast. A huge thank you to Dustin, Kenny, and Nolan for inviting us back for this. Your regular hosts will be back next time for Lufia 2, and until the next Retro Recap, I've been not Dustin.
I've been not Kenny, and this is a Shrek household, a Shrek community.
And a Jackie Jan community. I'm not Nolan, but I'm Dick Grayson.
And this has been New Game Plus.